Hello everyone, Silent here and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be covering a topic that I've been meaning to cover for a very long time, and that is despawning on the Bedrock Edition, or the lack thereof. You may not be aware, but there's actually no real good system in place to despawn hostile or passive mobs on the Bedrock Edition of Minecraft. I don't really need to tell you why that's a terrible idea and how that negatively affects the game in basically every way, shape, and form. However, I'm going to be going in depth in this video on why we need it on the platform, how it can be implemented, why it is an awesome idea in just basically every single way, shape, and form. Simply by adding despawning to the Bedrock Edition, it's really going to help increase optimization and therefore performance for lower end devices and even higher end devices as well. It's also going to make for much higher quality gameplay and increase immersion when you are playing, and it's also going to help increase difficulty as well, simply because the mobs will be more closely related to where the player actually is instead of in some random cave somewhere, never going to despawn, still taking up the mob cap. So I'll talk way more in depth on all these points in this video. So before I really get into the points of this video, I do need your help actually getting this implemented on the Bedrock Edition. This has been a problem on Bedrock since it was actually created. We've never had good despawning, and now we're getting more and more mobs every update, and it's just compounding and creating an even bigger issue. So what I need you guys to do, all of you watching this video, is leave a like on the video, possibly share it as well, but more importantly, talk to other people who actually play on the Bedrock Edition about this problem, make them aware of it, and also talk to any developers that you know. Share this video with them on Twitter. Just tell them that you want despawning because it's gonna make the game way better, way funner, and actually just a way more enjoyable experience as well. Again, we basically just need to convince the developers to get this to happen. It's totally physically possible. We just need them to actually implement it. So to be fair, there is a bit of a despawn system on the Bedrock Edition. However, it's got some flaws to it. Let me explain how exactly this stuff works. So of course there are different light levels in Minecraft. For every light source that you have, that'll put out a specific light level, and for every block away that you get from the light source, that light level goes down by a block. Of course, nothing too special there. So hostile mobs need light level 7 or below to spawn. That's just pretty straightforward, and in general is necessary for pretty much every single hostile mob. Light level 7 or below, you're good to go for getting some spawns. However, things on a Bedrock Edition need light level 8 or above to despawn. Now, at first glance, that might seem fine. However, that's actually probably the least efficient way to actually get rid of mobs on this platform. For instance, in the ocean, there's no light sources in the ocean. For instance, in 99% of caves underground, there's no light sources because it's a cave. You're probably not going to have lava. Some caves do have lava, some have, sky access, but for the most part, your caves are not going to have a light source, so that mob that spawns there is basically never going to despawn, and it doesn't really take much effort at all to see why this is a terrible system and how it just allows for a massive amount of buildup. So this isn't actually very well known. However, some hostile mobs like Endermen actually actively avoid light. As you can see, 90% of these Endermen are on the far corner of the platform where there is no light. So as you can see, kind of a little bit of flaw. If your hostile mobs need light to despawn, but they actively avoid all light, then they're not really ever going to despawn. Also, these guys are making some very strange noises that I've never heard them make before, and it's super weird. I don't like it. But yeah, as you can see, place lights over there, they actively avoid going to that corner. There's one more thing that I nearly forgot as well. If a mob interacts with a player or so much as even looks at or notices the player, they will no longer despawn either. And also passive mobs in general don't really care about light levels, so I have no idea if or when these guys would ever despawn. So that's a thing that you definitely need to be aware of, and that would make sense for the mass amounts of buildup that can happen on the surface in the world. So definitely be aware of your pigos and your sheeps and stuff building up, and your stupid trading llamas as well. Those guys are super annoying on their own. That's a whole nother video. And also this goes for hostiles as well. If a hostile mob notices a player, looks at them, or of course interacts or attack or anything, they will no longer despawn. I'm not sure the specifics of this, but I'm guessing this guy could go off into a cave and be totally fine and never despawn, be in highlight levels, still not despawn. He could probably even go off and get a new career, become a drown, probably still not despawn. I'm not sure again of the specifics, but there's a lot of stuff that is just not in your favor. I don't know how or why the things are this way, but it really seems like they just don't want things to despawn. If they don't want it to happen, they could just tell us. They don't need to like go behind our backs and just like make the worst possible system in the world. So the final example of how things work at the moment is gonna have to do with chunk borders, and this is what actually allows for the massive buildup of mobs in caves and in oceans and anywhere and everywhere in the world. So I have a little bit of a chunk border resource pack on at the moment, just shows the chunk borders in the world. So basically this is a chunk border right here. Let's go ahead and assume that our hypothetical player is 64 blocks in that direction over there. This is the final chunk that the player is loading, and this chunk over here is completely unloaded. So what could happen is a creeper could spawn right here, or really any hostile mob, and it could just go ahead and walk directly into that unloaded chunk, and that is fine. It's now completely unloaded, but that could also allow for a new mob to spawn and just go ahead and repeat that process basically forever. Lucky for us, the spawning system is super slow, so it likely doesn't happen that fast. However, it does certainly happen a ton. Of course, this is an oversimplification. There are, of course, density caps and all kinds of things in place to help prevent this, but the density caps, they don't actually help prevent this at all. They're honestly kind of useless. Density caps don't help with this problem. The lack of despawning doesn't help either, and mass buildups are just a thing that happen all the time, as you've seen with all the different footage and the pictures that you're seeing in this video as well. So obviously all is not lost, because Java Edition of course has like perfect despawn mechanics, no real issues with it. It just works. If a mob gets further than 128 blocks from the player, it just instantly despawns. It's great, there's never been any problems with it, and of course we don't have anything like that on the Bedrock Edition. However, we can simulate that using commands. This original little concept came up with by SlackLizard. Me and a bunch of other people have since modified it, and this is kind of the final system that we got here. Very simple, very straightforward, and basically it's just a giant execute command telling the game what not to get rid of, and that's just always going off basically like 4 times per second. Really straightforward, really easy to do. It's not laggy in the slightest. It works, it's reliable, and it's just good. It actually really helps boost performance of the world, because then you don't have 30,000 mobs everywhere in your caves, in your oceans, building up all over the place, being crazy, and it's just great. So again, as you can see, there is nothing physically stopping us from having despawn on this platform. There's no giant code block being like, oh, we just can't add it. We just need to convince the developers to do it. So again, share the video, leave a like, do all the things, subscribe while you're at it, because you're already pressing all the other buttons, you may as well. And we know this despawn system is reliable, efficient, and lag friendly on realms and servers as well, because I myself have been using it for the past like forever on the Whispercraft Season 2 world. Many others have been using it as well, and as you can see there in the right hand corner, there is the mob counter. We set up a scoreboard to see how many mobs it has actually despawned. As you can see, we have currently despawned 1,239,675 different mobs on this world. That has been open for a total of 8 months. There's actually a ton of ways that simply by adding despawning, you would significantly increase the performance and of course the optimization of the Bedrock Edition as well. For instance, you would have a far less mobs all over the world in stupid little places like far down caves where they're never going to interact with the player. And that will of course take up way less CPU and RAM resources, and of course it gives some better performance for the game. Bedrock Edition's whole thing is optimization. This is a massive area that could use some more optimization. Despawning is a great way of doing that. You'll also never have these massive groups of mobs bottling up on outside of chunk borders and in unloaded areas with tons of collisions and just all kinds of nasty nonsense and lag happening. That's a pretty big issue. Despawning would fix that as well, and you'll also never have these massive groups of like dolphins or zombie pigmen or wolves, you know, that can all aggro at the player at one time, and that is a really fun thing to do. If you ever find like 200 pigmen in one area, go ahead and hit one of the guys. It's a fun time. It's also extremely laggy and should not be a thing in survival. And also, if we added despawning, then there would be basically no need for any form of a density check either. The density checks, again, aren't really doing the job that they set out to do very well. Adding despawning would completely eliminate the need for any form of density check on the platform. By adding despawning, it would also help improve gameplay as well, because the mobs in the world would actually be more densely concentrated around the player. This is a brand new world, so there's literally like no mob cap issues at the moment. So there's actually like, you know, mobs around me, which is nice. That makes resources like string and bones actually accessible and, you know, fairly easy and straightforward to get. There's always mobs that want to kill you. You actually need to like defend yourself. Normally, right now in a survival world that's actually been played in, things are kind of empty and desolate because the entire mob cap is taken up in your caves. Nothing is despawning in the darkness. And it's just kind of lonely. It feels like you're playing on peaceful. Honestly, most of the time, it really feels like you're playing on peaceful. By adding despawning, we would also have the ability to like actually find some hostile mobs underground as well. This is a brand new world. I've been down here for several minutes, haven't seen a single hostile mob, and honestly, it's just kind of peaceful. Like, this is pretty straightforward. Not a single thing down here wants to kill me. Whereas normally, if you're on Java Edition, there's action around every corner. You gotta watch your back. There's actually like mobs that want to do their job of trying to end your life, and it's just fun. But right now on the Bedrock Edition, with the current despawn mechanics, like all the mobs are down here. They're around. You might be able to hear them if you're lucky. However, you're not really going to find them unless you got some x-rays to actually look through these walls and find the isolated caves that they're all piling up in. So there's nothing like a clean pitch. Again, if you want to get this issue fixed on the Bedrock Edition, be sure to leave a like on this video, share it with your friends, and create a conversation around this problem. It is well overdue that we get this thing fixed on the Bedrock Edition. As you can see from this video, it is a pretty massive problem, and of course, be sure to share this with any or all developers that you know as well. Send this video to them on Twitter or Discord or really anywhere. Again, it is super massive that we as a community bind together in this time of need and help convince the developers that adding despawning is truly a good idea for the masses on this platform. Like, this affects every single player that plays this game. Even those people that just play in the creative super flat worlds, they have a bunch of slimes that are never gonna despawn around their areas. It's a thing. Like, for real, this affects every person that plays this game. And it's a really big issue. So bug report links will also be down in the description of the video. Please do upvote all of those. It's also a massive way of getting things fixed on this platform. So be sure to let us know your experiences with the lack of despawning on the Bedrock Edition. How many drowns have you found in what size area? I think I've probably found about 60 drowns inside of like a 15 by 15-ish area before. Pretty fun. Let us know if you got any experiences similar in the comment section down below. Very curious to see that. And of course, try and create as much buzz around the despawning and lack thereof on the Bedrock Edition as you can. The more buzz around this and the more we talk about it, the more likely it is to actually get fixed in the future. And of course, thank you all so very much for watching. I do truly very much appreciate it. If you did enjoy, of course, be sure to leave a like on the video, share it with your friends, and maybe subscribe if you're new here so you don't miss the next one. And I'll see you all down in the comment section. And in the next one, thank you so much for watching. And then there was silence.